Don't make any plans for Friday night because we have got a date with an ex. Let's talk about it. Now, they tell us not to sort of get back with our exes, and we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't get back with our exes, but sometimes you run into them and you see that they're doing a little bit happier, a little bit better, but then you look at yourself and you go, actually, we're doing a lot better, like without, like I feel better without you. And that, not going to say that you were bad for me or anything like that, because I enjoyed my time with you. But you're doing your own thing now, and you're somewhat thriving. I'm doing my own thing, and we are absolutely thriving at Collingwood. And the ex, of course, I'm talking about is Jack Ginnivan and his Hawks. Now, this is going to be an incredible game, right? The Hawks are just our bogey side, and I know I said the Kangaroos is a banana peel game, and you know it was in a way, but the Hawks are just a bogey side, just completely. In my life, well, I was gonna say in my lifetime, I can't really remember the 90s and stuff. But in my recent lifetime, Hawthorn have always had the wood over us. And all you have to do is look back to last year's game, and we'll look about that in my new series, The Last Time We Met. So be sure that'll be on game day, so that'll drop on Friday morning. We got absolutely smashed. And that was when people started taking Hawthorn a lot more seriously. And I remember I was at that game. I was depressed. I was so depressed after that game. Just sitting in the chair with Dad. Just Pies got done by like 60 something points, and that's probably the worst I've seen Collingwood play since Fly took over, and that was Dan McStay's return game. We'll talk about a little bit about that in the other video. But now look at what's happened now. Now we're sitting on top of the ladder. A clean bill of health in a way. We've got 5 players returning, and Hawthorn are in a little bit of a lull. Yes, they've won 7 games and lost 4 games. But they're starting, I think they've only won, they've lost 3 of their last 4. I know they've lost a couple in a row to Gold Coast and to Brisbane, and they're looking very gettable. At the start of the year, it was very much Hawthorn are premiership favourites, Hawthorn this, Hawthorn that. They recruited very well. And that's not to say that they're not a good side, because they're an incredible side when it's on their day, and they can turn it on just like that if you give them enough time. But for what I can see looking in as a Collingwood supporter and from recent history, they're finally gettable for us. We can finally, maybe it's not a 64-point win like they did to us last year, but we can finally have the wood over them when they're good. It's all fun and games beating a team when they're bad. You want to beat a team that's your bogey side when they're good, and we finally have the chance to on Friday night. Now, I just alluded to the fact that Hawthorn have lost 2 games in a row. So one of those games is in Darwin against the Gold Coast Suns, which is pretty much their second home anyway, right? They love playing in Darwin, the Suns, and Hawthorn did, fight back a little bit, but the Suns just overpowered them too good. You can take the heat into it, whatever you want to sort of say, right? But Hawthorn certainly didn't lose any credentials in that game. Then they go and play against the Lions, and this was the Lions' first win against Hawthorn at the MCG since 2004. In that 2004 game, Craig McRae was still playing for the Brisbane Lions. That's crazy, right? That's absolutely nuts. That's 21 years ago. So, and you go, okay, so what's happened? Why is that happening? They got done in clearances. They got done in inside 50s. The thing with Hawthorn is, and what I've been seeing recently, and I've seen the match highlights and stuff like that. They don't want a two-way run. They want to run in front of the contest so they can get that handball over the top. And when it comes off, it looks amazing, right? But then they don't want to run back when the ball's in dispute, or when Brisbane put on pressure and they stop those little short kicks and stuff. When they don't have an exit strategy, Hawthorn really tend to crumble. When they go forward and when they're surging forward, and if you give them a little bit of space to hit that 45-degree kick, and then they go into the center and then they're running, that's why they're the Hollywood Hawks, right? That's why they're doing all those celebrations. That's why they look really flashy. But it's that two-way run where you can get them on. And, you've got to only look at Collingwood's first game against the Giants, where the Giants were kind of doing that to us as well. We were all sort of pressuring in a different way. We were all sort of pressuring in. Giants were getting one over the top. We didn't have enough players out. We were getting done on that overlap. Now we've really changed that up a lot, which I love. So I think this is going to be a yin and yang tactical style of game, which is a little bit the same, but a little bit different as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how they link up on Friday night. Now, a place that we can get Hawthorn in is the middle. Now, they're going to go back this week and work on their clearance craft. They're the third worst team for clearance differentials in the season this year, only in front of Richmond and the West Coast Eagles, right? So, like I said, when they get it out, it looks flashy, but they're just not doing hard enough work. And I think Pommy from Pommy and Oz was saying that they're fraudthorn as well. So, interesting to see, right? So what I'm thinking is, with the emergence of Ned Long, they're probably going to tag Nick Dacos, because obviously who isn't tagging Nick Dacos, right? But you got Ned Long, you got Bo McCreary running through the middle now. You've got all these players coming back, and we'll talk about our changes, a little bit later. All these players coming back, our midfield should be able to overpower this young Hawks midfield. And I know, like, you've got Newcomb, Meek in the ruck as well. Warple has been here and there. Some of their players that are usually on fire have been down this season. And I know, when everyone in the media sort of jumps onto a team, much like they jumped onto Fremantle, they're going to respond. So expect a huge response from this Hawthorn team, but we should be able to weather the Hawthorn storm. Another area that I sort of do like our chances in is Hawthorn's forward line. Now, we've played these last couple of weeks against really tall timbers down there. The only true full forward they have is Marbio Chol, and Gunston's more of a third tall, not really a tall, right? A medium forward, if you will. It's those little guys that are a bit, how's it going? Ginnivan, Weddle, Watson. So Ginnivan and Watson are the ones that you got to really look out for. Going to be very crafty. Without Braden Maynard as well, it's going to be really interesting. But again, this is why we recruited Dan Houston. This is why we recruited Harry Perryman. So that Maynard 1 to 2 weeks out offsets that because we've got these recruits in. Isaac Quaynor, thanks to last week, has been in a little bit of form now. So he'll carry some nice form into this game against the Hawks with his old mate, Ginnivan. So it's going to be an interesting battle up forward, but one that I think, especially with Darcy Moore coming back, especially with Billy Frampton playing to like all Australian standards, he should keep Chol to no goals. You'd think, what did you think? Moore would play on Gunston maybe. You got Howe there as well. If Hawthorn and what they've been doing recently, been bombing it long into the 450, we should be able to mop it up. Even though, there's no Maynard there to kind of play on some of those smaller players, we should be able to get on top of them in that way. Now, ins and outs. Tell me another time you've seen a team bring in 5. Are they all premiership players? Yeah. Oh, except for Lockie Schultz. But 4 premiership players and an incredible crafty medium forward, right? Lockie Schultz, Scott Pendlebury, Steele Sidebottom, Bobby Hill, Darcy Moore, all return. Fly said all of these guys are coming back. That's absolutely incredible and says a lot about where we are as a side, where, yes, the Kangaroos are not doing too well, but they did challenge us a little bit. But that was probably our youngest team in a while. We still went over the top of them. And, it is going to be harsh, players coming out when they've had okay games, but that's just the nature of the business. You want to win games. You're not going to leave these 5 players out just because we won a game last week. But Fly said it's not necessarily first one into last week's side is the first one out. So we could still see maybe a Will Hayes as a sub or something like that, something interesting with no Braden Maynard. We could see Will Parker stay in. I do think Maynard, Ed Allen had a good game, but it's just that defensive work that I need him to sort of tighten up on. Who else could it be? It could be Lockie Sullivan, Will Parker, Will Hayes, Will Lipinski, Will Hoskin-Elliott. These are some names. Mason Cox maybe, but I really don't think so. I think they're really wanting to stretch the back line of Hawthorn. Could we even see Tom Mitchell play? Which would be, something. I think that would be really interesting. And I said it on a video, a couple of videos back. We could finally see Ned Long and Tom Mitchell play in the same team. And the only thing is, Tom Mitchell didn't train today. So that probably puts a no in that column. I reckon he's still a few weeks out anyway. I would like to see him maybe against St Kilda. Would be very nice. But he's one of those guys, a premiership player that's just waiting in the wings to go on and play. We're blessed at the moment, touch wood, with a plethora of guys that are coming back in. And then, in after the bye, we're getting McStay back. We're getting Braden Maynard back. Who really knows about Jordan De Goey at the moment? Getting a couple of mid-season draftees in. Do they bring in, could you imagine Josh Brown gets picked up in the mid-season draft and then he plays on Friday night? It's going to be really, really interesting. But there are those 5 players that come in, and it is we have never been better placed to smash Hawthorn than we are right now. Big calls and predictions. So I think we're beating Hawthorn. I reckon we're going to beat them by 30 plus points, right? And I'm feeling confident, and it's not because Hawthorn are in a bit of a lull. I just think that with these 5 guys coming in, which is 10, 15, which is a quarter of a team. That's a quarter team change, but it's not like they're forced team changes and they're experienced players. You're not bringing in 5 new kids, right? So I think it's going to be 30 plus points. Let's just say 36-point win. And I feel like after his, leave, his personal leave last week, Bobby Hill, and again, we do wish him all the best. I feel like this is calling for a Bobby Hill 3 or 4 goal masterclass. You can just taste it. I'm not sure what the weather is like on Friday, but if we can get on top of those clearances pretty early, and then assert our dominance. Also, one big thing that I forgot to mention before, let's not kick 7 goals, 17 points up until 3-quarter time. Let's convert that. Instead of kicking 3 goals, 8 in the 3rd quarter, let's kick 8 goals, 3. Let's just convert goals and convert chances a little bit more. Because like I said, if Hawthorn get their way and they're getting that flash handball, or we let them kick it, we're not pressing as much as we should. Because remember, you put a little bit of pressure on Hawthorn, they start to crumble. If we don't do that, they're going to get that over the top. They're going to get into their forward line, and they probably will convert because they do have some really talented forwards there. It is going to be an epic battle, the young versus the old. But I am so ready to humble these Hawks. Let me know your thoughts down below. And until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets. But until next time, double shackers, I'll swoop you later.